Join us for a review of the updated Toyota Hilux. Let's go! Here in the front, the update of the Toyota Hilux sees new headlamps, and they are slimmer right here. Standard would be halogen with the base version, and these here are the optional, or include in the high trims, the LED lamps, and they also have a new daytime running light right there. In general, the grille is now bigger, more prominent for a more menacing look. But this one here especially is the so-called invincible version, the highest trim, and this comes with this huge plastic cladding already here in the front. However, if you think about base price, taking a German reference now, 25,000 euros, and then if you pick the double cab as it stands here right now in the highest trim, about 50,000 euros, so double the price. So you always have to think about when you pick it in a really, really high spec, is it still fulfilling the original purpose of the car? Of course, both versions are available, but really looking forward to your comments later on. If you rather would go for a base Hilux and more for like this rugged off-road use, or more for this high trim luxury. The length is at 5 meters 33, 17 foot 5 or 210 inches. And now, from which side will I enter today? The guessing game starts right now. Today it's the front. Well, and there's the double cab version right here for most passenger space. However, there's, whoa, no, I'm not drunk yet. I'm not doing the drinking game from guessing the sides. Maybe later. So depending on the length of the loading bay, you also have then the other version. So it starts with a single cab with a loading bay of 2 meters 30. Then there's the extra cab that's in between. And this one here is the double cab. Then the loading area is just 1 meters and 50. So really depends on how long do you want this part to be and how long do you want this part for the passengers to be. And here in this trim we also have these invincible stickers here in the 3D styling at the rear. Actually quite nice design here for a rear, because we have another big off-road style element right here with the next braking light, and also the tail lamps here have a very modern LED style. And then we can pull this one here to the right and open this one like that. And this was here 1 meters 50 in length, 1 meters 80 with the extra cab, and 2 meters 30 with the single cab. So depending on which length you appreciate actually. And good also that here the lights on the side, they stay visible even if you have this part here lowered. If you put some motocross bikes on there, then you still can leave this one here lowered and you can still see the tail lamps here at the side. As for engines, depending on the country, depending on the market, petrol engines, there's a 2.7 liter inline 4-cylinder, then there's a 4-liter V6 petrol available, and for Europe the diesel 2.4 liter diesel, or today the new 2.8 liter diesel, 204 horsepower and 500 Newton meters of torque. The entry engines also come with rear-wheel drive only, optional all-wheel drive, and this one here automatically comes with all-wheel drive only. Of course also with a transfer case and so on, so really off-road capable, and also with an automatic transmission. So of course you can get in here with these side step But yeah, then you make these dirty. Shooter, very important today. But as I said, these rubber mats can also be cleaned quite easily. Seating position, high and upright as you would expect it, and actually quite cozy as for the seating position. Headroom with 1.86 or 6.1. There's way more than enough left. Steering wheel up and down and also in and out. That's also cool, and some pickups, for example, like the Nissan Navara, do not have that. Then it goes only up and down. And also tall people find a suitable seating position. That's no problem. And also the roundabout visibility is actually quite decent. Interior overview. This nice deco element is here again at the top part, and also this very 90s or even 80s style digital clock here in the top part. Here to open or close the vents. New 8-inch touchscreen. This is used now with the facelift, and you can see it here. Finally, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto integration, and soon more details to that screen. The steering wheel, the steering itself, the technical side of it has been reworked. See more about that in the driving part. So it's supposed to give you a little bit more comfort and also a better feeling. Here you can control the digital instruments. We also take a look at that. Digital instruments just in the middle part. They are classic analog. Just the digital instrument in the middle part. Here for cruise control in the lower part. Start stop engine button. Then below that there are the off-road controls for the rear-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, and then the low gear for the off-road gear reduction. And a close-up of the infotainment. Here we also have the optional sound system in, and I mean, this is not set out to be this luxury segment, but considering, I found the sound actually quite decent. So this is a pleasant surprise as for that. The usual system here, what they have here is, you see, pretty basic look, and there's no GPS installed here, so when I hit map it jumps to the CarPlay GPS, but that's also fine. Then the instruments, right side speed, left side RPM, and then this small digital gauge in the middle part, for example for the fuel economy or for the current speed. But you can also check out your music there, assistance systems or some warning and so on, but pretty basic. And now to the rear seating area. Right here. Opens quite wide, that's okay. And this being the double cab version, you have the longest legroom actually. So the extra cab would be shorter in the rear, just more or less emergency seats. And the single cab, of course, then, as the name says, without a cab in the rear. And here in the double cab, as said, most legroom, then it also fits with tall adults. This seat, as we would be driving, is tall adults as well. Then you can also fit 4 tall adults right here. There's like this bag hanger here, you can fold out. Pretty unusual to see this at the rear seat. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the Toyota Hilux. Here, newly available 2.8 liter diesel, 204 horsepower. And you do hear this typical diesel nailing sound, so it sounds actually quite old school, but with 10.7 seconds to 1 kilometers or 62 miles an hour, it's 2.1 seconds faster than the smaller 2.4 liter diesel. And of course also, as I said earlier, petrol engines then available in other markets. Here in Europe, especially in Germany, you can only get the diesel engines. So they did also rework something with this facelift here, about the rest of the driving. And one thing is, there's a new steering that's supposed to be a little bit more, easier and more direct to steer. So we'll soon come on that. And then there's suspension rework, leaf springs in the rear, and suspension also supposed to give you a little bit more comfort. So indeed, the steering is pretty light. Of course, having this off-road focus of the vehicle, you cannot expect a progressive approach. So here you see you have to steer quite a lot. That's again perfectly usual with off-road vehicles. So when you have harsh off-road situations, that your steering wheel doesn't get turned around all over the place. So that's actually quite okay. But still, the steering rework. There's a new servo pump active, and they say that when you hold it just straight for a longer time, it gets deactivated to save fuel. That's interesting. So that would be like when you're running straight for a long time. But most of the time, at least on European roads, you do steer at least something. And I mean, since it has this off-road character, you don't have the best feeling in the steering wheel. And here also, when you're like, turned halfway like this, there's one thing that it's set on the off-road mode, and then you have to steer more. But indeed, you don't get the best feeling that you would be connected to the road, although this is of course not a focus of the pickup. Suspension-wise, I have to say it's really a little step forward. Of course, once again, this suspension is also set on that you can do some heavy stuff with the vehicle as well. Now at 3.5 tons is the towing capacity, so that has been enhanced in here when you go for the big diesel, and also has been reworked for the small diesel for 3.2 tons before. Now here lane change about 80 kilometers an hour, and suspension indeed doesn't shake up too much, so this suspension still has to fulfill different things, so it has to be rugged and off-road ready, yet at the same time they wanted to increase the driving comfort on the road, because more and more people are buying the pickups, the trucks, as we say in US, for the road driving, just because of the looks, because it looks cool, and you still can have the back then for utilities and so on and so on. So the soft off-road use is also quite frequently, of course, and then hard off-road use, that diminishes bit by bit. Still, of course, some customers do that with the vehicle. Here again, when I really try to shake it up, it's actually quite okay. You see here, it doesn't shake up too much, so that's fine. 18-inch wheels here with the standard off-road tires we have too, and they are actually giving us still a good driving comfort. These off-road tires are usually softer, and that also translates into a softer driving than on-road. And since it's not a sporty vehicle at all, that's also just fine. Here now, when running straight, I can also set the cruise control. You set it here on the on the lower column here at the steering wheel, and it's just a very normal one, so you can just maintain the speed, and that's basically it. Overview, since it's a pickup truck, is actually quite good. All the upright windows and so on, you can hold on tight here for off-road use, of course, or when you get outside and you look, what's coming ahead. See here, vortex generators here next to the mirrors. That's also a funny thing to have, definitely. Quite relaxing. Noise insulation is actually quite okay so far at these speeds. So let's get 2-speed a little bit more, and we can also show you what about the acceleration when we are already at speed. First of all, let's check the consumption so far, and that's about 10 liters or more kilometers when just driving calmly would be like a minimum consumption. It's also coming close to the official consumption stated. That's about 23 mpg US, 28 mpg UK. That's actually then for this size okay. However, also have to think about that it's a diesel. Then let me show you back to the speed. So one more. So now when let's drop to 60 kilometers an hour, I also activate the so-called power mode, so I have a little bit more booster, a little bit more throttle input. And then 60 kilometers an hour to 100. Let's go. Plop, that's it. So you have a kind of understanding of the power. I have set it to the two-wheel drive mode, so this is then rear-wheel driven. The Hilux available as rear-wheel drive and as all-wheel drive, so both is possible to purchase. Here, this one, the all-wheel drive version, but when you drive it in the road, then you just use the rear-wheel drive, that you don't apply more pressure on the whole drive shaft and so on. The all-wheel drive mode then really for off-road situations, that you can master these situations better, but here when road use, just leave it in the two-wheel drive mode. And of course, a rear-wheel driven car is always then a lot of fun. Here now, motorway, 100 kilometers, 60 miles. Again, noise insulation is not too bad. Of course, with the pickup truck, it's never the best, but considering the upright building style of the car, it's still okay. once again, due to the rear, is also very good. How stable is it here at the higher speeds? Lane change. Yeah, it's also quite okay. So no worries as for that. Still feels rather calm and collected. Drives a little bit faster as well, around 30 kilometers, about 80 miles. Now you feel that the wind noise is picking up just a little bit. The good thing is you always have this upright seating position, which also brings you more comfort. Now on the brakes, this is of course a heavy car, but still, if you compare it, for example, to a Toyota Tacoma, that one is the bigger, heavier truck. Thanks so much for leaving us by. I should follow this one, right? Yeah, wishing all the luck that who is ever in there or needs to be in there will be doing fine, of course. This one here, the Hilux, not available in the US because it is actually too small, and they, probably would also expect that when they got the cheaper Hilux, then maybe people wouldn't pay so much money for the Tacoma then. Now accelerating out, which is of course fun and with a rear drive. Front axle stays light. Yeah, but really loud this diesel sound, right, isn't it? But the performance is actually quite good, and it gives you also advantages in comparison to the 2.4 liter diesel. And also if you think about then towing equipment, it's of course then better when you tow something really heavy, that you have a little bit more power. And when you have more displacement, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have high consumption or something. Talked about this issue quite a lot of times then. Unfortunately not available here with the petrol engines in Germany because of these CO2 fleet emissions in the EU. They need to bring that down. So they expect these then to have even higher fuel consumption. So we cannot compare them here just yet. And now to our conclusion for today with the updated Toyota Hilux. Well, the updates are quite nice, with the new lamps there in the front, the new look in the front, especially in this Invincible trim where you have this really, really strong look, a little bit like, F-150 Raptor-like, but also here with the black cladding right there. However, sadly, that this exterior trim is also combined with the high trim on the interior, and then the price goes really, really high. And if you then think about that the actual unique selling point of Toyota Hilux is more like a really decent price for a rugged car that is really reliable, then the question is if it makes so much sense to trim it that way in a high luxury version and then pay a lot of money for it. On the interior then also combined with the animal skin seats, and they are of course then better with a fabric surface when you pick a low or a mid trim. So although I really love this exterior design for the Invincible version, I would rather advise for a better price performance ratio, if that's more important to you, go for a mid trim version for example, and then also pay less money. Overall, very well usable as for the space we have here, especially as a double cab, but it depends really on how long you want the cargo bay to be, and depending also how much space you need in the rear. Again, single cab, extra cab, and the double cab, depending then length of the cargo bay and length of the rear interior department. But that's then totally up to you. As for driving, the diesel sounds still typical diesel-like. It sounds and feels quite old school. This initial generation is still from 2015. The slight interior changes, also with the infotainment. Good to have the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Then you can also leave this, rather not very well usable car internal GPS you could order. Although it's a new update infotainment system, it doesn't look that fresh. But again, the most important thing is that you finally have the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connection right there. Suspension upgrades, I found them actually quite nice. So you also have, especially while road driving, a little bit better feeling. The steering upgrade, can't say that this made the biggest difference now, but it can't hurt either. So, what do you think about our review of the update Toyota Hilux? Hope you had a lot of fun with this very iconic car. So, one of the very famous names, of course, at Toyota. And once again, if you're interested in the off-road driving of the Hilux, we also have a separate review of that. We will link it in the video description and in the pinned comment. So, see you also there with Brian and Jonas. Today, the team Thomas and Jonas, then behind the camera. I hope you will enjoy both episodes in full length, or see you next time.